why the platform and the wellness is so important to me as a man, because I feel like so many of us don't have space to even know what's wrong with us. We never get to sit by ourselves and go, yo, what do you want out of life?
Dog, can I tell you, like, legit? Welcome to another episode of Keepin It a Bean. Keepin It a Bean is a podcast that brings together culture, commentary, and coffee all together in one space. Again, this is me being able to invite you to one of my favorite places, which is like a Black-owned cafe or a bookstore. So this is my replication of it. So welcome to my space. If you are new here, my name is Marquise Davon. Keese, this American Negro. Please don't ever call me Mark in your life. It's just, don't do it. Ever. I just have issues. No, but if you are also returning, you already know what it is. Hello to niggas and niggas only. You already know what the vibes are. It is so good to be back for another opportunity to chat. And there are a couple ways that you can support this here podcast as well. If you are looking at these two very lovely faces here on the camera, this is Morris Chestnut, if you didn't know. Okay, bang, 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 bang. Light hit it just right. Then you obviously know that there is a guest on this show, as there is every single episode. Then that means you're watching on YouTube. So make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Make sure you hit that notification bell for every single time an episode drops. Episodes drop every Sunday at 10 a.m. So you can sit down, grab your cup of coffee, put me in the background, do your Sunday cleaning, all that good stuff. Okay, so maybe it's not Anita Baker. Maybe it's Marquise. Okay, maybe it's Keepin It a Bean. Thank y'all for also just supporting on here. Make sure that you're engaging with this. So make sure you leave comments as well. Make sure you like this episode. Make sure you share this episode. And you can also do so in another way as well. If you're listening, because I know I am your favorite Monday morning drive listen as well to work. You can do so and support me on Apple Podcasts or Spotify by hitting a rate and review. Please make sure to leave 5 stars. Don't be a hater. Tell me what you liked about the episode. Okay, that's the best way to keep up with me. Another non-monetary way that you can keep up with this here podcast as well is by keeping up with the hashtag. So Keepin It a Bean or hashtag KIAB as well on Twitter. You know I'm a man of the Twitter streets. You ain't got to tell me twice. Okay, keep up the conversation there. Tell me what you enjoy about the episode. Tell your friends to go listen to the episode, because I still think word of mouth is one of the most powerful ways to get across for podcasters. Last but not least, make sure that you're also helping us show up on different playlists as well, because this helps us with the algorithm, and then other podcasts that you may enjoy that are similar to mine, it'll also bring up those recommendations. So these are really important ways to support podcasters as well. Now, to the money. Those of you that are willing to invest in this here black man right here, you can do so by going to patreon.com/Marquise Davon. That's MarquiseDavon. There you can get exclusive content. You can get early drops to different episodes. Some of it is going to be just raw and unedited. Okay, so you won't get it all. B and Cody, not your episodes. Okay, very different episodes. Okay. But there is just a good way to catch up on any announcements, any events that will be coming up in the fall. Wink, wink. So this way you can get that exclusive news as well. So that way you can just get a little bit of content a lot faster than other people. So I do appreciate those that are also subscribed on the Patreon. And I understand, economic anxieties are happening as well. However, if you want a different way you want me to get me paid is by recommending me to work, talk at some workshops, do some talking. I've been a keynote speaker before. I've been on plenty of panels before, working at conferences, all that good stuff. So if you don't hear me talk around black masculinity, race, gender, power, politics, feminist thought, abolition, all that good stuff, I'm your guy. So you can also support me by recommending me for those spaces as well. I love a good paid opportunity. Thanks, y'all. Alrighty, so that's all out of the way. And now I'm going to get into this episode. You ready?
Let's get it, man.
Let's
get it, brother.
Y'all, I am so excited for this interview. I've been waiting. I said, dog, he just had to pick the latest time in the fucking month to do this interview.
I did. I needed that vacation.
No, you needed that vacation. No, the vacation. Okay, let's get into it. But y'all, this is Apothos Poppy. Plant dad, actual dad, good friend, brother, mental health advocate, wellness enthusiast. I don't even know where to stop. Photographer, lifestyle guru, all the things. Guru is crazy, but I do enjoy having an insight into parts of your life that you decide to share. Isaiah, welcome to the show.
Thank you, man.
How you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I'm happy to be here. I know he's mad I picked the latest date, but I was like, we going to have to do it right. We don't want to rush it, and I don't want to be burnt out.
That part.
And we're going to talk about it. So we made it. The timing is perfect.
Nah, dog. Truly and honestly, I do think the timing is perfect. I have just been like a huge fan of you as a person. Also, just a huge fan of the work that you do as well. I appreciate that, my guy. And there was just so much alignment. Like I'm sitting there, I'm just like, dog, even down to the brown hearts, he gets it. He gets it.
I'm an advocate for all black and brown things.
Look, okay.
You know what I mean?
And it's so noted, and I pay attention to it so much. And so I'm excited, one, to just talk around like how your personal leans into your platform and all that good stuff, but also how you developed as a person as well. And so I'm just so excited for, one, my audience to be able to engage with you, and also just see another opportunity of like, oh, this is also another black man and how we can exist in these spaces together. Because I do think you are truly like a possibility model for so many black men who simply just need permission to be sometimes, and they don't know different aspects of who we can be and who we're allowed to be and how we're able to just show up in different spaces. So I'm excited to hop into that conversation. But before we get there, a nice little icebreaker, a way for the audience to get to know you a little bit. Welcome to the Keepin It a Bean segment. Keepin It a Bean is where you keep it 100, keep it as authentic as possible. And this can be your hot take, whether it's personal, pop culture, politics, whatever you want to talk about. Okay. It is your time to get it off your chest.
All right.
What do you want to keep it a bean about today?
I got so much to talk about. I had to narrow it down. I've been thinking about it.
You've been struggling.
Why are we always focused on blaming? Why are we always blaming the opposite sex for problems online?
Ooh. The gender wars.
I'm so sick and tired of the gender. I'm so sick and tired of the gender wars. Like you saying, they said, niggas with podcasts need to stop making them. Like, I feel like the problem with me is that there's always a blame game. It is never like a unity.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Or even like, we can still debate or we can still disagree. We're even different in ourselves in the way we show up in the world and what we represent and what we want to do. But I think there's like ways to be respectful, one, and learn to unify and even agree to disagree in certain aspects and just still be in community together. Right. I feel like there's so much division online based on people projecting, but we're going to talk about that. Projection is a whole separate episode. Projection. But I think that as I get older and I become more aware and more mindful myself as a man, I haven't always been the most mindful guy myself. So I think that I'm learning that we got to stop blaming people. And learn how to take accountability, which is like the word of the year for everybody. Say? Accountability.
That was crazy.
Where's Akila at? Can she spell that for us?
And
really
the
B. Like, accountability for the parts we play and how we can show up and how we can be better. Yeah. And maybe be that model of change. So I think that my biggest frustration is, why are we blaming and not just instead of having conversations to understand one another better?
Right. Oh, man, you said a word and a half, because it's so easy to, like, point the finger. But I think something, especially, shout out to my therapist. Okay, Nico, you had me right. I love you, girl. But something that she had talked about is also, like, a lot of the time that we are, like, projecting onto other people or having to, like, hold each other accountable. It's also coming from a space of, one, it's not always about you. It's 9 times out of 10, it's definitely not about you. It's something that they are still looking for. And she actually helped me articulate like a new definition of what jealousy and envy can actually be. And it's simply an expression of an unmet need. And so when people are resentful of you and people are hating on you or they're jealous or envious of something that you have, it's because they lack that in their own personal life. And so something
makes them feel insecure.
Okay. Because
what's your therapist's name?
Huh?
What's your therapist's name?
Oh, Nico. Shout out to Nico.
Nico, shout out to you.
Okay, she's great.
That was awesome.
Yeah. But she helped me craft that definition, and it's something I think around, especially as we think around like the gender wars we see online. It's one, realizing like how much online is, as much as we can say it's an online community, quote unquote, it's not a community because I don't feel any obligation to you, right? And it's not like we're hitting these touch points. I think there's spaces and pockets where like you hit those individual pieces, but like there are spaces on Twitter where I'm just like, no, I don't know y'all niggas, right? Personally. But there are people that I've met online that became friends in real life, right? And so like even like for you, for example, like but we dialogue a lot more, right? And so to me, I think that expression of that unmet need is very pervasive online because there's so many people who have yet to articulate why this thing makes them angry or do the work that makes them kind of reflect on like, well, why did this make me feel this way? Well, what am I also missing in life that could be this thing, right? And so I realized more and more that most things are not about you. And it actually has helped me navigate conflict a lot more with a restorative approach, because now I kind of lean with curiosity, like, what happened to you? Like, quite literally, if you hit somebody like, yeah, what happened to you?
How did they receive that?
So some people get stuck on stupid, right? Okay. Like, I try to stay away from the, like, who hurt you?
Yeah.
Right?
Because that's like a demeaning
term. It's demeaning. But, like, in reality, like, what happened to you or what happened today, right? Okay. That made this thing kind of elevate, right? But it throws people off a lot of the time because they're not looking for that question. So the immediate thing most people do is like, the fuck you talk about? Like, what you talk about? Like, da-da-da-da. But when they sit there for a little bit and it's just like, oh, and you ask at least 2 or 3 more questions, and normally all you have to do is ask why, it starts to come out more and more in terms of like where this may have come from. And sometimes it must work with people that you're genuinely in community with because they feel a sense of obligation to you. But I also realized, like, even it happened online. Somebody decided to be an a-hole for fun. And I was just like, well, how'd you get to that conclusion? Yeah. Like, you projected all of this onto me, but, like, how did you get there, right? And so I always think around, like, asking the question of, like, how did you jump to that conclusion? What happened to you? Because it still brings in a space of, like, empathy, but also puts the ball back into their court, on their side of the court, for them to have to reflect on, like, well, did I have to say it like that? Maybe not. And I just feel like, see, but in my mind, I'd be a shady nigga.
You didn't just lash back out at them, which they were probably expecting you to do.
And yes. Okay. And so I think they try to predetermine so many other people's, like, reactions of things rather than just being like, no, actually diffuse this argument right now. Because I think at my big age, I'm just like, no, I don't have time to, like, argue with you, right? And so, I appreciate that hot take, because I definitely do think a lot of the gender wars are people who are not getting needs met, or they have this idea of what the other gender should be doing rather than just seeing each other as humans, rather than like, oh, here's how patriarchy kicks in and, like, sullies my imagination of, like, oh, no, you are actually a human being who has different needs that need to be met. So that was a solid hot take, good brother.
That's good. I mean, that's what I've been literally feeling, bro, because I see it all the time. It's more frustrating than anything, because you see, like, people come into spaces to have, like, they come with the intention that there's going to be a good conversation or a good exchange, and you see people lashing out at people. You see people throwing microphones. You see people talking about people's moms. Like, how did my mom get in here?
How we get in here?
like that's how I want to know. Like, where did we get here? How do you talk about my mother? Right. Or the assumption of people based on things. Like, at least you ask somebody what happened versus that's because you got mommy issues. It's like, you don't even know me.
I'm gonna let you get to that conclusion on your own.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So I think that lack of understanding, I think, is something I would like to see change. Yeah. And specifically, every time I speak, I'm speaking about the black community.
We can get into it. Let's be clear. That's niggas and niggas only. Yeah. It's my platform. Yeah.
So, like, that's what I'm speaking about, because I feel like we show up differently in the world due to the traumas that we've experienced, due to the black experience here, the black American experience in general. So I think that we do owe each other grace. Yep. We owe each other understanding. We also owe each other patience. So I'm like hoping that we get to a better space as people, even men who have differences. Yeah. Can have conversation to understand each other more before you spew out hate.
Right. And there's so much in there as well, because I'm just like, no, we absolutely need to get to that point, because I think the space that we're lacking right now is conflict resolution, right? I think about, because I visit the Philly prison every other Thursday with the Brotherhood Foundation. Shout out to Doc. I appreciate you, man. But sit down to talk to the boys of just like, oh, like, how did you get to pulling out a gun, right? How did you get to, like, the space of violence? How did you get to making that conclusion that you thought this was the only thing you could do in that moment in time, right? And it's hard, because we're also trying to speak humanity into somebody who has committed such an atrocity, right? Has committed such harm, and still being able to still see humanity in a person who's done that, when on the other end of their decision is somebody who is probably not here, or somebody who was hurt a lot, right? And so it's something I try to, like, exercise a lot of patience with, and has just taught me of, like, oh, you are not the sum of the worst things that you have done in life, right? And so I don't know, I've been playing with this idea of redemption and, like, restorative justice practices, and that's what I'm going to get my master's for and stuff like that, with anthropology, of just, like, comparative restorative practices and, like, different spaces, and that's just me nerding out real quick, but I'm just like, if I look at Rwanda and see the genocide that happened and know that was less than 30 years ago, and now the people who committed the genocide are going back and have to face the consequences from the community, or have to actively go and apologize for killing their neighbor, right? Like that, to me, I'm just like, this is wild how like this works on such a systematic level. And like, how do we bring this into our communities? How do we bring this into our homes? How do we bring this into our interpersonal relationships?
That's important. That's very important.
And I just don't know if people have seen a model that feels good to them, because it's still dealing with very human emotions of just like, no, you hurt me, and we're conditioned to get revenge. We're not conditioned to understand or see or be curious around how another person got to the conclusion that they got to.
That requires a level of empathy
that I don't know if enough of us have patience for sometimes.
I feel that.
Right?
And it's a lot going on in the world, so it's just a lot around us.
Nah, that's a fact.
So that's why we can talk about wellness a little bit more, because I think that's what we talk about a lot. When you see my platforms and what I try to show up to do is to talk about being well.
Right.
And specifically, I like to speak to Black men because I feel like there's not enough avenues that are viral that are allowing Black men to be.
Right.
When I say that, I mean not come and try to be the most masculine Black man you could be in a room because you feel like that's how you're going to be heard and seen, but spaces where you can show up unapologetically as yourself, imperfect, letting go of whatever trauma you have and just be.
And knowing that that's okay.
Right. And I think that there's not enough, like you said, empathy, but there's not enough gentleness when it comes to Black men being in a space together. It always has to be this, like, we talking about what we doing with women, or like how many, like, it's always this super hyper aggressive nature that when you meet most people, because I have a way with people, if I meet you one-on-one, I'm going to find out who you really are.
Quick. Right.
Not because I'm trying to expose you, but because of the way I show up. Because if you fake with me, or if you try to be hateful or be weird, I'm not staying. You feel what I mean? And I had to learn that because I grew up not having that dynamic. I grew up in a house full of women as the only man, with women who were projecting their feelings toward men in life because they didn't have good experiences. Right. From my mom to my sisters to cousins, like, their experience with Black men wasn't good. Right. So even though I know undoubtedly 100% that they loved me and cared about me, they could never understand me the way that I feel like my father should have been trying to understand me at the point. You know what I mean? Because they're not a man. Right. And they already have their notions and they're hurt. So it's like, I think it's very important as a man to be in a space where men can see you. Yeah.
No, that's valid. I think that's, like, that piece is important because I think around one, like, my role as a teacher, right? And so, like, I was working at an all-boys high school and was just like, oh, they're seeing us in a different way because inherently, like, when you think about teacher, you think about nurturer. You don't think about Black men associated with being nurturers, right? Yep. And so being able to go in and, like, just say, hey, how you living today? How you feeling today? What do you need in this moment, right? And it's those moments where they don't know how to control their emotions and they're just like, oh, Mr. Marquise, I need this thing, right? Like, they just don't know what to do with that energy. And so something I've been thinking about more is, like, taking that into, like, our regular communities. And you got to witness it, like, even, like, the dynamic between me and Sterling. Like, that's my brother.
You can tell. It was good. Good combo, too.
And so it's just, like, I'm glad to be able to be in spaces. And I realize I'm also privileged to be in spaces where my circle of Black men that I'm around, they allow me to have that space to be imperfect, that allow that space to call me in when I'm wrong. And knowing, like, being wrong is not a futile thing. And I think as early as one of my best friends, Miles, in college, they tried it, and I was vicious. And one thing about me, once you piss me off,
I'm the same way.
It's
bad, man.
You're castrated before you even know that it happened. Like, I just need you to know.
It takes a while though.
I tell people I'm not a preemptive bitch. I'm a responsive one. Like, I'm not gonna go out of my way to be mean to you. But I remember he's like, yo, bro, I think that might have been too far. I might have called this man every kind of stupid, idiot, possible thing in a very public space, and was just like, I don't care, and you can't beat me. So what are we talking about?
And was ready to fight. That's how you know you got mad. When you take everything out the window. Like.
Everything's out the window. That's a reason. And they know, like, they don't see that part of me. Like, yeah, do I live in a perpetual state of irritation? Maybe. No, I gotta know that. But in reality, like, to get me to a space where I want to be reactive in that kind of space and I want to be hurtful, that takes a very long time for me to genuinely get to that space. And so I remember Miles calling me in and was like, yo, bro, I know you're angry, but, like, it don't gotta be like that bad, right? Yeah. Like you just take a beat. Like if you gotta go to the dance studio, go to the dance studio. If you want me to just sit with you, like do that. Yeah. But for him to like allow that kind of space and allow me to just like live in that frustration and still be affirmed, but also still being held accountable. And like he's truly helped me like define how I love other people is a balance of like accountability and affirmation is what my recipe for love really feels like. That's dope. But yeah, I think it's important because oftentimes if you were in disagreement, we're so used to seeing like, oh, I don't fuck with you no more. Like you really corny ass nigga. Like da 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 da. You're like,
it goes left so fast.
Yeah,
I'm guilty of it. So
it's all right. I grew up. We're evolved.
I'm from Philadelphia, so being from Philly, it's fast. It happens real quick. It happens quick, and then you feel the need. Like I'm not a naturally confrontational person. Yeah, I'm not afraid of it. Right, but I would try to avoid it by any means, even if it means when I was younger. I wouldn't say I was bullied. I would say I chose to let stuff roll off my back until I couldn't anymore because I just didn't want to have to deal with the consequences of going home and explaining that I got suspended. Right. Like, you know what I mean? Like, for me.
Dog, he's a Libra. No,
I think about things all the way forward. So when I'm making a decision to do something or I'm trying to do something different, it's always, okay, what is this going to do this? How is this going to affect this person?
Who does this impact?
Who is this? And I think that, you can subconsciously become a people pleaser. Oh yeah, because you're trying to make sure you're not offending anybody. And then you're gonna when you learn when you get older, you're gonna offend somebody. Yeah, you saw the podcast I was just on, right? Dog, I didn't say anything wrong, did I? No. What did I say?
He said, "I prefer to date black women.
I want my family to be black." Mind you, I have a black family, so I'm not even saying it from a point of it's something that I want. In theory, like it is something I have. I got. And this was my first experience on a bigger platform. Yeah. So he was telling me, and that's why I appreciate him 100% because he's like, listen, this won't be the last big platform that you're on, and you'll learn to ignore it.
Truly.
You don't have anything to prove. Don't let people try to get you out of character because that's what they want from you. Mm-hmm. Some people are just on here trolling. So just let it roll off your back. And when he said it, I felt calm. Like I was like, yeah, you're right.
You here.
And then I had other friends, like especially girls, a lot of female friends that I had was like, the proof is already here. Like they like you have a public profile.
The proof is in the room with us.
With the beauty of your family that you showcase every day, and you show yourself showing up for your family every day. You ain't got to prove nothing to nobody. Right. You said what you had to say. You were in the space. It's good to see you representing that, and just move on from there. And I'm like, that's how we have to learn to move sometimes in life. Is that the more you speak out, and the more you become fearless, and the more you try to do things, there's going to be people to try to bring you back to the old you. Yeah. So if you were fearful a lot growing up, just growing up in certain things, you're already afraid to do it. Right. Anything that you're doing that's new, that's big, that you know is going to change the world, you're afraid to do it already. So if you do it, you're like, how are these people going to react? Yeah. And then when you start seeing the negative, you start focusing more on a few negative comments and none of the positive. Right. So I'm like, it's that reframing of the mindset that's important. That's why I told him, I was like, thank you so much for encouraging me to reframe. And it means a lot coming from another man. Yeah. And my because I didn't have that growing up. Yeah. I had I grew up around reactionary and emotional women.
And that's funny, like you say that, because like for me, I grew up single mom. My sister is the oldest, and then it's 4 boys. So I'm the middle of 5. Okay. And so like even then, it is like everything was like explosive every single time. So you just see growing up in a space where you're just like, there's no actual dialogue happening. Like people are fighting, people are yelling, and so like even for me, and it's so funny because how it shows up today. Like I struggle with like getting into heated arguments. Like it is very rare that I like raise my voice, but when people are like screaming at each other, even outside, like I break into a cold sweat and I'm just like, oh, this took me back to a certain place, like growing up. And I realized like so much of the reason I don't like unless I'm cackling, like Davon knows, like they all know, like I'm gonna cackle, I'm gonna be loud. But like when it's in a space of confrontation, I'm just like, oh, all logic has left out the room. Yeah. I personally will just like withdraw because I realize it triggers me back to like little Marquise of just like, oh, I can't do nothing to stop this fight. And everybody's just arguing and throwing shit and people are throwing fists. And I'm like, oh, that's not the environment you're in anymore. Yeah. So like I even have to like actively reframe my mind of just like coming out of such a like a volatile and like reactive home life in terms of just like when arguments do happen. I used to think, even with like my past relationship, I'm just like, oh, if we get into an argument, it's going to be the worst thing in the world. That means niggas is leaving. I'm going to be alone. I'm going to do this, da, 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 da. And so, like, even in those moments, I also realized I had to become a people pleaser because I was scared of people leaving. But I also, in that people pleasing, I never knew how to, like, set my own boundaries on, like, what do you want, Marquise? And that's the piece that I think, for us as Black men, the world tells us we need to be the strong one. We need to protect ourselves. We need to throw ourselves in the line of fire. When it comes to family, you're the first person to go. When it comes to the world, you go to war first. Everything is signaled to us like men must be disposable. And in that, we kind of reinforce that because now we're providers, we're protectors, we're doing everything. Yes, but at no point in time did we learn to like fill our own cups and learn the training to do that. And so when we
learn to just say, I'm not safe. I don't feel safe. Like that's a sign of weakness for men, specifically Black men in spaces when you say, I don't feel safe. Or I don't like that. Or I'm crying about it not because I'm afraid. I might
sassy,
be frustrated.
Right. That's crazy.
I'm feminine for crying. Crazy. Which is a natural human emotion. But they assume that it's associated with you being weak, even if you're angry.
Right.
And I have a book recommendation. It's called The Untethered Soul.
Ooh.
I don't know if you ever read it.
I did not.
You should read it.
You ain't got to tell me twice.
It talks about trauma a lot. Yeah. And it talks about basically the premise of it is learning to sit behind the seat of at the seat of your emotions. Yeah. And so when things are happening to you, they're not really happening to you, they're happening for you. Yeah. So if you reframe your mind to realize that this is in my face right now, this person is doing this right now, I don't have to give them what they want. Right. And if I know it's going to take me back and I'm aware of what's going on, I can withdraw myself or just remove myself from the situation in general. And I think that changed my whole dynamic on conflict in general. Not even just fighting and like aggression, but like people who may be passive aggressive, or seeing friends that are envious, like you say.
Dog,
that
I ain't gonna hold passive aggression don't work well with me.
It don't work well with me.
I be saying I say what you gotta say with your chest.
Right. Like if you and I feel like the type of people we are. Even from speaking with you on the multiple times we've had conversations, we can feel the vibe
immediately.
So when I walk into a room, I think the gift of observation is the greatest thing I'm grateful for having. Yes. I could be talking to everybody. I could be dapping people up. Best believe my head is on a swivel. Not because I'm afraid, not because I feel aggressive, but because I need to make sure that whatever energies are in that space, that I'm aware of them. So if something goes left, I'm not surprised.
That is so fascinating because I know, like, even for me, and Keepin will tell you, like, when I step into a space, like, one of the first things I ask is, like, how's everybody feeling? Like, I'm sitting there, I'm checking, I'm just like, all right, so before we even get into this meeting, like, I'm somebody, like, I don't work well when spaces are not harmonious. Yeah. Like, I will retract from a space, I will be in my own space if I'm just like, oh, you're actually, like, not, like, this energy in this room is not here, and it's not going to be conducive to any of us being productive at work today. And so, like,
it needs to be those people. You need those people in spaces, especially in forced spaces and curated spaces like college. Yeah. Like, a lot of times you come together with all these people, which is such a big mind warp. Like, I'm walking in, it's all these people from all different types of life. There's people from other countries. I went to Temple. So it's like, there are Black people from all over. Yep. And we're all in this one space with all our different beliefs and values and the way we've been growing up and our own traumas. And, like, we're forced to get along for the sake of keeping the operation moving. Yeah. So people like you are needed because I've never been one of those people until now, like that can walk into the room and say, okay, it's a little heavy in here. What's going on? Like, you know what I mean? So people like you, I remember having educators like you who walk into the room and say, all right, let's do a little icebreaker real quick
little
and get to know each other because it just seemed like everybody just seemed like afraid to open up.
Yeah, and it's funny though because it's like for me, I show up. I said if I can never be in a job where I can't be my most authentic self, then I'm not gonna. Like I know I'm not gonna last long.
Have you always had that?
If I think about it, I've done it in different ways. Okay. Yeah. Like even like early on, I played basketball so I can bond with my mom, but I realized I was like, Mom, I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this so we can bond. Like that's our moment to bond. What else? Like I've done it in so many different iterations. Even like when my family was taking me to church. My family from down south, so like, oh yeah, you're gonna go to church, blah 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 blah. It was cool, and I was like, church is not for me. Like, it's not where I find my safety at. That's not where any of this space is at. And honestly, niggas just be thinking. That's a whole
episode.
Truly and honestly.
That's a whole episode.
And I ain't never bring like religion in that much, but I would definitely. Oh, I'm definitely interested.
Church culture
in,
is important though because religion and relationship are very different. Yes. And I'm a church goer. I go to a church, but my church provides a space. for you to feel safe.
Which is dope.
So I was glad to be fortunate enough to have that.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I had a very safe church, if I'm going to be fully honest. Like,
Yeah.
everything about it was dope. I loved the people. I loved the community. I loved everything there. But I was just like, whatever my mom gets from praying, I am not getting.
Okay, you wasn't feeling it.
It just wasn't.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was like, I love what church has done for family. I love what it has done. What I've seen it do for like my sister.
Right.
How she navigates life and just like that kind of space. And I'm sitting there, I'm just like, yeah, this is interesting. Okay. I learned a very similar thing from James Baldwin, right? Okay. Like, literature is where I found like my idea of values, right?
One of my best friends the same way.
Yeah. Oh, that's
he said he found his whole identity in books.
Yeah, and that's
like
by
reading.
What it was for me. It was reading for me because I'm just like, this gives me insight to so many people's different lived experiences and helped me form empathy. It helped me kind of like navigate. But I was just like, I look at it, and I'm not to bastardize anything, but like I look at the Bible as a really excellent piece of literature that people can live by. And I'm like, if this literature can do this for people, then why can't I find it in other spaces as well? And granted, again, very two different connotations with the things. Yeah. But for me, I definitely realized, I was like, oh, this is where, like, reading Go Tell It on a Mountain by James Baldwin and reading the character of John and realizing, like, oh, he's looking at church a very similar way to me. Oh, he has to understand the perspective of, like, how did my father get here? How did my mom get here? And learning how to like navigate himself and the questions of growing up and learning. And so I was just like, oh, I finally see myself in another character. And that definitely like just transformed how I like navigate the world. Honestly, it's how I ended up in theater. I'm like, so I studied theater, I studied broadcasting. But to me, theater is like building like the purest form of empathy.
This man
like
does everything, man. Let's stop there and give you props and give you your flowers for all that you do.
Yeah, man. But it's like so many different iterations. So I love hearing you talk, particularly around like the spaces that you're able to kind of give permission. Because I think your platform, like I keep saying, is like a window of what could be. Like they always talk around like windows and mirrors. Like I feel like in some spaces you're definitely a mirror to so many people, but to even a larger subset of like, or larger group of Black men, you are a window of like, dog, this is possibility.
That's so funny because I still struggle to see it like that. I'm being 100% serious. I think that I've had people say that more to me and being more aware and like going to therapy and learning more about my traumas and unpacking. Like, I feel like I spent so much of my time on autopilot. Yeah. Just doing what I felt like I needed to do for me. I'm doing it for me. Right. And I'm doing what I feel like is important for my community also as a secondary part of it. But I don't think I ever felt like, until I had people start talking to me like that don't know me, like you are such an important aspect. You get emotional about that because I didn't grow up hearing that. So it's like hearing people go, you are so necessary and important to your community and the people who don't even know you for just how you show up is like a level of reward that like I don't think I could ever.
Do you get used to it or no?
No, it makes me feel weird sometimes. Yeah. Like I don't know how to really accept compliments all the time because I feel like I grew up having to stifle who I feel like I was. I've always been vibrant. I've always been fun. I've always been able to get along with anybody. Yeah. Like I could walk in any room and be safe. I've show up to places by myself most of the time.
Solo days are great.
And I'm going to market myself. I'm not going to call it marketing, but I'm going to show up as my unapologetic self. Right. If I'm not welcome, like I said, I don't have to stay. The only person I have agency over is myself. I think we spend time, especially being younger, accept me. Yeah. Accept me for who I am. I may not be the most boisterous guy. Yeah. I may be too gentle for you. You may assume that me being gentle means I'm soft, or you might call me gay. Right. Because that's how you perceive it. But I can no longer fight for you to accept me for being who I am. I have to remove myself and find community that does accept me. Right. And I think that when you find that in yourself as a man, that's your superpower. Yeah. Oh. And I think that's.
I gotta ask something about that. Yeah. At what point was there a moment that was like, I'm done with it? Like, do you remember a vivid time that happened that you're like, this is a changing point? Or is it like a bunch of things that happened and then you're like, I'm done with this now?
I think the full changing point for me, I think there was this is the way I believe that God works, in a way that trauma happens. Like, things will keep happening and keep showing up in your life, and I know y'all as men in this room will understand it. They're going to keep happening until you address it. It don't matter. It could be 10 years later. You could suppress something that happened to you when you were younger, or try to behave in a way that's not naturally who you are. it's going to keep coming back until you address it.
Yep.
There were like a myriad of things that had happened. When I told you, I was saying before, the trauma is going to always come back. That's what we were saying. Yeah. It's always going to come back. And I feel like that's God's divine way of letting you know, like, you're not getting around this, bro. Mm-hmm. It took me years to realize how much growing up and being like mentally abused in a way as I grew up and learned that made me make myself small when I walked into spaces. It took my mother-in-law, when I got married in 2017, we moved in with my mother-in-law for a year. She was like, just come here. It's all this room. My wife's dad was barely home. He used to work in Dallas, back and forth in Dallas and Philly for American Airlines.
Wow.
So it would be back and forth. She was home a lot, so she was by herself. She's like, just come stay here for a year. You don't have to pay no stack some money, whatever. So we did it. I was sitting in the kitchen one day. My wife had went to work. I had my photography business, so I wasn't in an office anywhere when I was just working strictly that. I went and came in, regular day, regular morning, sat down at the table, talked to her for a while. What she said to me was, do you notice, and it was so random, like I didn't know what she was about to say. She's like, do you notice that when you come into the room and you like sit in a chair and you like go like this? She's like, you like slouch over, like you're trying to make yourself small. And I was like I didn't peep it. That's how much I was used to not trying to make noise so that I wouldn't be like picked on or wouldn't be like pointed out. So she said, this is your house. Like, you live here. Like, you don't have to sit around and make yourself feel small. And I'm like, wow, that changed my whole dynamic. So for me, that was it. That was the first thing that really stuck out to go, she's right. And I in my head, I automatically went back to all the times as a child. My mom suffered with like severe anxiety and depression, like a lot of my life. So a lot of times I was raising like my own little sister. My little sister's 4 years younger than me. We're really close. But like a lot of the times my mom would sleep for days. Sometimes she would leave and not come home. Wow. She got into drug use a little bit because it was just like anxiety. That when you grow up and you learn how it shows up and what it makes you do, you can see the spiral. So I kind of never was mad at her, but also always wanted her to feel better. So it was like times I'll be raising my sister. My mom wouldn't come home for 4 days. So think about the trauma of being an 11-year-old. Mm-hmm. And raising a 7-year-old and shielding them from seeing what's really going on. But I'm well aware of what's going on. Yeah. And I'm also feeling the feelings of, what if somebody comes here and tells me my mother is dead? Yeah. Like, how am I going to handle that? And also, on top of me handling it, what am I going to tell my sister? Yeah. Like, it was always, what about her? Yeah. What about her? So I grew to do that for a very long time. Right. I grew to like, I need to take care of other people's feelings before my own. Count. So it kind of made me feel small because I never felt like I had space to be. I wasn't able to be a kid the way I wanted to be a kid, just due to a lot of trauma going on. My dad was around, always provided, but he wasn't in the house. They split with my when I was 7. So it was a lot of that a lot of trauma that you built up. I had my first anxiety attack at 31. Literally after I'm running at working at Penn, working at the job, and having an issue with a manager, and I had to quit because of the issue. Mm-hmm. And then I'm sitting at home and I randomly have an anxiety attack, like sweat dripping from my palms. Like I lift my hands up like this, and my heart rate went from 77, which is normal when you're resting, to 150 while I was sitting down. I had Apple Watch on, this one right here. So I felt overwhelmed. I got up on the couch. I look at my watch. And I'm like, check my heart rate because I feel where it's going up. Like I'm looking at it go up. First thing I'm thinking is, you about to die. Like you're having a heart attack like right now. Wow. Like, so thinking about, my therapist told me, because I had a therapy session, literally my first therapy session a week after I had an anxiety attack, because I just happened to book my first appointment weeks before things happened. Yeah. I just felt like I needed to. And she was like, I'm so surprised that it took you 31 years to have an anxiety attack. Like, and I think about going back to like, how many times did you internalize things to be peaceful? Wow. To not shake the table. Like, you know what I mean? Because my mom, she had anxiety. So anytime I said anything, I was like, being soft. Yeah. Or men don't do that because she can't deal with it. Right. I didn't know that at the time, but usually that's the case. My family didn't talk about issues. My family lashed out. Yeah. So anytime I sit down and go, and I've always been different ever since I've been a kid. I've been very, like, the same way I am now, I've been this way, and they couldn't handle that. So what I had to do to not be the eyeball out and to not get punished was to turn into a shell of a person. Like basically, I wasn't going to be more aggressive because I just felt like that would make me angrier.
Yeah.
I just didn't say anything.
Wow.
So people perceived that I was shy in school.
Yeah.
He's shy. He sits in the back of the room, but the teacher would always call on me. I could never hide from. That's why I say whatever's meant for you is going to happen. Mm-hmm. It's just up for you to be in a place to eventually go, I just need to embrace this part of myself.
Yeah.
Like the teachers would point me out, and I'm like, I'm sitting back here in a hoodie. Just don't fucking. I got a hoodie on, and I'm not looking at anybody. Yeah. Why is she calling on me? And then like that happened to me in college, and it kind of helped me kind of come out of my shell a lot more as a person. And I felt that was the first time I had community around me where people were like, yo, you could do this.
Yeah.
And it was that simple. I ran for homecoming king because my friends told me to do it and won. And at a PWI.
Mind you, this is the guy now organizing his like reunions and the meetups and shit like that.
But you know what I'm saying? Like at a PWI, I didn't even think I was going to win. I was still insecure in the moment of doing it.
Yeah.
I did it because my friends believed that I could do it. So it just show you that if you grow up with parents that pour into you, and family that tells you what you can do, you show up in the world a lot differently. Wow. So to make that shorter, because I know I'm like
that's
ranting.
what the point of this is. Like, I love the space that you like allowed us into because I was like, one, like so much of what you said like deeply resonated with me because I was the kid who made himself small. I became like the compliant golden child just so this way
to stay out the way, cause no issues.
No one can like you can't say nothing.
Yeah, get straight A's the whole nine.
Quite literally, I was like straight A's, everything. I was like, all right, gotta work, go to college. I quite literally said I'll be one less bill for my mom, and that's why I started working at the age of 16. Like I was like, I want to be one less bill, right? Dog, so much of that truly resonates because it's just like making yourself so small and
feel like nobody understands you.
Yeah,
because before you finish your thought, that led to it was that moment when I told you about my mother-in-law talking to me about that changed my complete life. I don't even think she knows that impacted me the way it did.
Wow.
And the thought of suicide while I was in college, when I was at like the pinnacle of being popular.
Wow.
Like I was homecoming king. I was like hosting events. I was hosting concerts, meeting celebrities that came to the school. Like really, and all the organizations, the NAACP, learning more about my people on the front lines, for Raleigh's, for Trayvon Martin, like really, really involved in going home and feeling empty because I still felt that shell of nobody understands you because I've been ignored for so long.
Yeah. And
so you don't even know how to accept and embrace what's for you, which is why I bring it back to the point, full circle. That's why it's difficult for me to hear people say you are a window of what a black man can be if he perseveres through whatever.
And that's the hardest thing to like realize. Dog, thank you so much for sharing that because that's really like one of like the hardest things I had to like learn is like, one, who am I actually doing this for, right? But even so much of like even like having to like learn how to raise yourself and understand the world at such a young age when you're just like, I just want to just hang out.
I just want to
be a kid.
Like some kids are just being.
Yes, and I was like, so y'all just got to just do whatever? Like this is crazy.
I'm afraid to ask for cleats to play football because I know my mom is going to be stressed out when I ask her about it.
Yeah.
Think about how you show up, how you don't want to ask anybody for anything. Like,
I was
all those
always
things.
scared. That's why it's like why I hate Christmas. Like I'm just like, oh no, Christmas always reminds me of like the anxiety of my mom having to work multiple shifts before so we can get just something, right? Oh man.
And not knowing how to accept, like even gifts from your friends. You're like, you don't have to get me anything. You might really feel that way, but at the end of the day, it's like, this is what I'm like. I'm not used to that.
Yeah, it's so different for me because even it showed up in my past relationships. Like, got a wonderful gift and was just like, oh, this
like,
is so
you got to take this back.
Yeah, no, this is too much. Like, this is like 3 bills. Like, what are you talking about? Like, and so like I rationalized like not being able to like accept so much because I'm just like, I told myself like, I used to downplay the accolades that I got. I used to just, when I was excited about something, it was always shut down. Like, oh, there goes Marquise, bragging about something. I'm like, no, like, this is something that, like, genuinely, like, excites me and makes me happy. But I had realized, like, for so long, I had wanted my mom to show up to so much, and she couldn't because she's, like, working, and she's dealing with, like, abuse, and she's dealing with this. And I'm just like, dog, like, there's like a lot going on, but as a kid, you're simply just like, you want that parent to be there. And I was always jealous of like my 2 siblings. Because like my 2 older siblings, their dad was around.
Okay.
My 2 younger siblings, their dad was around. And then I didn't know my dad until I was 24.
Okay.
And so I'm just like, oh, like I need to just be on the straight and narrow no matter what. I need to just demonstrate some form of like excellence so you can't not see me. Right. And so But even then I realized
That's
like so
crazy.
much of that to me was just like empty. And so like even when I moved in with my best friend, when I first moved to Philly, I'm also just like, oh, I'm making myself small because in my mind, considering other people meant letting them get whatever they want.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not even realize like that's how it was showing up in so many of my friendships of just like, oh, I don't have boundaries.
Yeah.
I don't know how to communicate my needs because for me, being a really good friend, and my friends were super integral to me growing up, was like, I need to show up for you, and I just need to whatever you need, I will mold to that person. And so I was like definitely a chameleon. But I had realized once I finally moved in on my own, and this is in March of this year. Sterling let me stay at his house for a month while I was in between my apartments, and I was just like, I don't want to take up too much space. Like I don't want to make too much noise. I don't want to eat your food. I don't want to do this. And he's like, bro, I'm happy to have your company. Yeah. Like it is enough. You don't need to like and you don't need to stay downstairs all the time. Yeah. And so
Are you a words of affirmation person? Is that your love language? That's my love language.
So it wasn't words of I'm like quality time and physical touch. Like
words of
affirmation actually are growing on me.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I definitely was just like, now I do get anxious in my relationship. I'm definitely like that anxious attachment style. Okay. It's like, oh, I feel like niggas are about to leave me, right? Like, I just be like, nah, just reassure me. Do you love me? Are we good? Do you hate me?
Yeah. And that's the trauma, like living it within you. They say the trauma never really leaves you. Yeah. And I think when you're in your healing journey, you kind of learn that we're learning how to live with the trauma. We're not learning how to get rid of the trauma. You'll never get rid of the trauma. As long as you have memory and you have mind, the trauma will exist within your body and will show up in different ways if you don't.
And spaces you don't even expect it to show up in. Like
and
there were
through other
spaces.
people and everything. Yeah. So it's like, it's up to you to be able to identify that. And in order to identify that, you have to be in a state of mindfulness. Yeah. Which is why the platform and the wellness is so important to me as a man, because I feel like so many of us don't have space to even know what's wrong with us. We never get to sit by ourselves and go, yo, what do you want out of life?
Dog, can I tell you, like, legit, that has been, like, the most crucial moment of me, like, living on my own. Like, I'm like, oh, I get to choose the pieces of furniture that I want in my home. And it's the first time that I'm not living with another person. I don't need to negotiate anything. I get to just go home to the space that I have crafted. And, like, I go in, I'm just like, I wanted open windows. I wanted 2 bedrooms. I wanted more, like, I wanted wood. I wanted, like, very specific things. And I got what I wanted, right? But I remember sitting in that first month, I'm just like, oh, this is mine.
Yeah. You still can't even really fully enjoy it yet.
No, not at all. Because I'm just, like, in shock of just, like, I did not realize how much of my life I continue to make compromises for so many other people and didn't realize how much of those relationships and friendships lack reciprocity.
Yes, sir.
And because of that, I was just like, oh, my relationship with people has been changing in these last 4 months. I'm like, oh, I actually can say no to this thing. Yeah. Oh, I actually just like this. I used to be so scared to like sit with myself, and now I'm just like, I look forward to going home in the quiet. I like being able to like, all right, let me turn the stove light on, so I know that means the kitchen is closed, the dishes are gonna be there, the snacks I eat will be there in the morning.
And it's your space, and you're doing it the way you want to do it. Yeah. And it's so sad that that's a privilege for you. Yeah. You get what I'm saying? Right. Not in that way, but it's sad that there are so many men who don't have that, right, and don't even know how to curate it for themselves. Yeah. A lot of times our women do it for us. And that's like, it took my wife to be like, I like to be cozy. Her parents made sure. She grew up in a 2-parent household. Her dad worked a lot. Her mom raised her like all the hands-on stuff, but taught her how to be very comfortable because she grew up in an abusive household. Right. So it was very much of like, you're going to be comfortable here. This is your house. Right. You do whatever you want. Yeah. She used to get so comfortable. We first moved in. I was like, you're too comfortable. Yeah. How you that comfortable? Like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, so, like, that's important, I think.
And Doug, thank you for like naming that piece too, because I think the last piece I want to get to, especially as I got getting to know you as a person, getting to know you as a friend, getting to know you on your platform, getting to have a little bit of insight to who you are as a husband, as a father. That's the last piece I really would love to like learn about is like, you talk around like negative, or at least not negative, but like complicated relationship with the women in your life of you growing up. And now you are a certified girl dad.
1000%.
And so like, how has it like with you having a daughter and even learning that it was a girl? I know some people, like my sister, struggled when she first found out that she was having a girl because she was like, I don't know if I'm going to do this thing right. Like, I don't know if I'm going to raise like this because I don't have good interactions with other mothers and da 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 da. Like, what was it for you, and what was a motivation of like? Well, let's start here. How did you feel when you found out you were gonna be a father to a daughter? I
was always excited. There's only a 50-50 chance. So like you know what I mean, of whatever, of girl or boy or whatever. But I was excited, but also on top of the excitement, before the excitement, there was anxiousness. And most of the anxiousness came from me feeling like, and this is the first time I voiced something out loud to somebody else. Was like, I'm nervous, I'm not going to be a good dad. Because of what I've seen. Not because of what I know I'm capable of on the inside, but because of what I've seen. And it took my wife and my sisters and my stepmom and people to go like, boy, like, you built for this. My little sister said, you raised me. Like, I have more reverence for you than I have for our father. Like, so it took people to affirm me to go,
you got it.
Nigga, you more than capable. You done been a girl dad already. Like, this is normal. But for me, I was anxious because I just felt like I wasn't ever going to be able to be present enough for her. I always was worried about that. And I definitely blew myself out the water when she came. Like, I definitely, like, I'm like super dad. I do everything. I do hair. Whatever you want me to do, I do. And I'm excited to be there. And I think that the first frightening part was bringing her home and being like, yo, this is like, you have the ability to make or break this person in their childhood. But the one thing I told myself is that she is always going to be a kid here. And I think that is some trauma coming up from me from not being able to do that. But I said, I want to be so good to her for her to be a kid that I want to be envious of her childhood.
Look, get into it.
Like, you know what I mean? I want to be envious in a good way. And I'm envious now. She lived a golden life. And she should, because she deserves it, girl or boy. And I think that a lot of times people say, oh, she's a girl, she's going to be wrapped around your finger. Like, you're going to be wrapped around her finger. I want to also be wrapped around my little boy's finger if I have a little boy. Like, you know what I'm saying? And I think that we neglect men when it comes in young boys because we try to put the responsibility of men on kids that are boys.
Oh, my gosh.
And that's a whole nother conversation. For me, overall, I was very anxious and very nervous about it and very insecure. But I knew that I was always going to be in the space. I was just going to have to fight through it until I got it. So I got it much quicker than I thought.
I took them training wheels
off.
I did.
And we like this, man. It's nothing anybody can do. I don't miss moments. I'm there for everything.
I love it.
She chooses me to come to the moments. Her mom was mad. Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day. They went to this. She had a Sweethearts Day at school. They get to bring one person, a special person's day. And her mom said, who do you want to come? And she rolled her eyes at the top of her head because she already knew what it was going to be. She said, Daddy. I said, bet. I came with flowers and chocolate because I feel like we don't realize how important that is to kids, even at a young age. She still remembers that. I just posted that I was dramatic about the big cake that I bought her for her birthday. She didn't have a birthday party this year. She had one at 2, but on the 3rd, we did something small at the house. The cake was like this tall, this big. She's small. Like, she weighs like 25 pounds. But her expression for me was the win. I said, I want that outburst of expression. I want her to be excited. So while it's dramatic to you, it's not to me. Because she deserves those moments. She, like, the fact that she's 3 and she still recalls that moment from back in February says everything it needs to say.
Absolutely.
So for me, the presence of being a dad is what I thought I was going to lack, which I actually end up knocking out the water. So thanks for work from home situation. Thanks for having flexible work and being able to, like, be there for moments and not missing out. So
no, I think that's awesome, and I appreciate you sharing that piece too, because, like, oftentimes, sometimes our idea of the people we get in relationships with, that can be dictated by our parents, right? And so the things that we take on from our parents, we either end up replicating or we try to, like, grow out of that as well. And I think it's always such a difficult thing. And so, like, hearing the story of, like, how you grew up in your relationship with your own mother and then how you want to personally show up as a father to a daughter, I think that is so important because, like, the kind of man that she would understand her to want, if that's what she wants, like, that's important to know. Of just, like, what is a healthy relationship with a man can look like, right? And so, like, you know, it negates like the niggas ain't shit kind of moments too, right?
Exactly.
Like, no, I know a person.
Yeah.
It's my father. Like, he's
Right.
one of the dopest people I know. And like,
Yeah.
that's so important to like be able to name. And so, one, like, you're doing a damn thing more and more.
brother.
Like, yeah, I
really appreciate it.
really appreciate like serious story. More and
It's
more.
a lot. We can talk all day, man.
Yeah,
It's
no,
a lot of
this
things.
won't be the first. This won't be the last time you on the show. Okay. Yeah, dog. And so, like, honestly, just like round out this conversation as well. I think, for you and your platform and what you have been doing has been important in terms of curating spaces for Black men. And I love what you were able to do with your group as well. I was mad as shit I had to miss that, John.
We gonna have another one. Don't worry about it. You'll be the first one invited.
No, you ain't got to tell me twice. All right, we out here.
Y'all too.
But creating that space, I think, is so important. And so, what have you personally learned in this last year of like curating these spaces and like leaning into like who you are as a person?
A lot of things. To round it out all in one, I would say I've learned how to be fearless, like truly fearless. I think this is the most proud of myself as a man that I've ever been, because it's such a difficult space to stand in a room full of men when I used to not feel good enough to be in spaces with men. I used to be afraid to speak. I used to be afraid to project my voice because I was shunned away for not being masculine enough at certain times at a young age because I was raised by women. So the way I showed up just was different. And I think that it just shows how far I've come in my confidence as a person to be able to talk to men and for men to talk back and open up and be honest about their lives. So for me, I think the fearlessness is the greatest part to me, because I just think that fear holds us back from so many different aspects of our life we don't even know. Some of us don't even want to be with a single person in a monogamous relationship because we're afraid of what comes with monogamy. And that's honesty, responsibility to another person, being open, speaking about conflict when you don't feel comfortable. A lot of us haven't been groomed into that. So being married and being in a relationship has also taught me the aspect of fearlessness, because I have to fight for my marriage. Because outside of what we have in the house, the moment we walk outside, there are so many distractions. There are so many people not rooting for you, even though they're not saying it. There are people who are envious of what you have. There are people who are wishing bad on you, like, you know what I mean? And then there's your own trauma and your own life experience and you growing as an individual and being afraid of the growing apart from another person. I don't think that you will grow apart if you continue to fight. You know what I mean? But it takes both. It takes two people. So I think fearlessness is more important to me, and that's speaking up for myself and advocating for myself. So when I walk into a room, I don't care who's in the room.
Talk about it.
I know I'm not hateful. I know I don't mean any harm. And if I do harm you or make you feel uncomfortable, we can have a conversation about it. And I think I used to be afraid of that, because I'm like, I feel so bad. I made such and such feel bad. No, this person feels bad, not even because of me. This person is projecting. Now, I apologize for hurting your feelings, but you might have to go back and look at why you're mad, like you said before. And I think that confidence just takes you a long way to be able to know something about yourself, because I believed a lot of stuff people said about me when I was a kid because I didn't have anybody else to affirm me. So when you get to a place when you know who you are, nobody can shake you. And I think that that's what's different in this time and age.
That's a word and a half. Dog. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yes, man. Thank you.
Yeah, no, like I've been looking forward to this conversation. I knew it was gonna be a good one. Like,
you didn't say it.
I told him before.
He kept saying it. He was like, I felt that too, though.
Yeah, immediately I was just like, no, I know. Like, as soon as we get to just talk and rap with each other, like, again, like the purpose of this platform is honestly to build empathy through storytelling, and the amount that you were able to share, the vulnerability you shared, the transparency, the growth, all of that, the journey is so important, and I cannot wait to drop the episode.
I'm excited.
But in all reality, like, I think it is so important. So just know that I see you, Black man. I appreciate you, Black man.
Same, likewise.
Isaiah, you are the man, the myth, the legend. I appreciate you, good brother.
Thank you, brother.
Yes, sir.
Always.
But before you go, please let the people know where they can find you, where they can follow you. Whatever.
Yes. I don't know how long I'm gonna be on Twitter, because Twitter is turning into porn central.
You just gotta hit with your following tab, not your For You tab.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Heard you.
Okay. Yes.
Got you.
Who are you following? Not
That's
your For
what it
You.
is.
Yes.
All right.
But it's true, because
that helps.
I be sick and tired of it.
Because I'm like, what is this stuff? Because I'm not on there on Twitter all the time. I spend most of my time on Instagram. So just to make it short, my Instagram is Izzy or Izzy Not. So it's Izzy or _ Izzy Not. IZZY OR_IZZYNOT. That's for Twitter and Instagram. Also on Instagram and Threads, they're all the same. You can also find me at Good Guys and Greens. That's my wellness platform that I'm building, that I'm stepping out on faith and doing, specifically for Black men, but we're open for perspectives from all people, but it's definitely for us. Yeah. Some trouble getting a little bit of traffic, but it's hard getting Black men to, we gonna get there. But Good Guys and Greens, so that's literally Good Guys and Greens, all spelled out. So you can find me at both those platforms.
Y'all, please make sure you are fully tapped in with this man. There are so many more things. Like, this is, to me, I'm just like, this is just the intro, okay? This is your character intro. And now I'm so excited to like bring you in for different conversations, learn more perspective, and just like have you as like a consistent rotating guest on the show. Just because like, yeah, no, I thoroughly just have really appreciated the space. I appreciated the conversation, and it was a very easy synergy. Like,
we knew already.
Yeah, we knew this was coming. Yeah, dog. So once again, thank y'all. Shout out to the team, Kavan, Daniel,
y'all for listening to us rant and go on and on.
For the questions, for the fire ass B mic over here.
Yeah. That's real.
Thank y'all for tapping in every single week. Please make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, hit that notification bell as well, so you can get notified every single time I drop a new episode. I appreciate y'all. This is Marquise. That is all. Peace.
We're good?
Yeah.
All right.
The goal is for me to look like Morris Chestnut in every episode and every take. So just make sure, you know what I'm saying?
Make sure he look good.
That the chocolate is being chocolate.
No, it's doing the thing. It's doing the thing. The light is just aesthetic. We went with a soft palette today. We're not going to do a harsh yellow. We're going to do a soft. This joint is a diffuser. We got, you do the thing. Okay, we out here.
That was really.
Oh my God. No,
This
truly
is
and honestly.
our first time meeting in person.
Yeah.
But we talk all the time online, like we've known each other for years. So
it's definitely like
I'm excited.
It's Soul Brother.
Yeah.
I was like Twin Flame, Soul Brothers. That's what it was.
For sure.
Yeah.
You
see it? Perfect, right? Leave it on a high note. Don't do it again.
They gonna pay for the next one.
Oh man. Oh, I'm excited for this episode. You ready?
I'm ready, bro.
We gonna get into it. All right. Don't get scared with the clap. It happens every time. Someone said, "Oh my gosh."